Why your 40s? Beat your 20s for building wealth. Most people believe their 20s are the most important years for building wealth. You hear it everywhere. If you don't start early, you're already behind. Social media glorifies young millionaires, startup founders in hoodies, and influencers who seem to have everything figured out before 25. This creates pressure, anxiety, and a constant feeling that time is running out. But here's the truth. Most people don't talk about. For the majority of people, real wealth is not built in their 20s. It is built in their 40s. And once you understand why, you'll stop feeling late, behind, or stressed about where you are today. Let's start with your 20s. Your 20s are about exploration, not optimization. You're learning who you are, what you're good at, and what you don't want to do. You're switching jobs, changing directions, making mistakes, and figuring life out. Financially, this decade is usually unstable. Income is low, expenses feel high, and everything seems uncertain. Most people in their 20s are not earning their peak income. They are not in leadership roles. They don't have leverage, influence, or deep expertise yet. They're still proving themselves, and that's completely normal. In your 20s, money leaks everywhere. You spend on experiences, mistakes, learning curves, relationships, lifestyle upgrades, and sometimes poor decisions. Even if you try to save aggressively, the amounts are usually small. You might invest, but it's often with limited capital. Compound interest sounds powerful in theory, but in practice, compounding a small amount is still a small amount for a long time. Your 20s are valuable, but not because they make you rich. They're valuable because they shape you. Now let's talk about your 40s. By the time you reach your 40s, something important has changed. You are no longer guessing who you are. You've lived enough life to understand your strengths, your weaknesses, and your priorities. You know what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. That clarity alone is a massive financial advantage. In your 40s, your earning power is usually at or near its peak. You've accumulated skills that are rare, valuable, and hard to replace. You're no longer paid for effort, you're paid for judgment, experience, and decision-making. This is when income accelerates, not because you work harder, but because you work smarter. Another key difference is stability. In your 40s, your career path is clearer. You're less likely to jump randomly from one thing to another. You understand long-term value. That stability allows you to make better financial decisions. You can plan, invest, and build with intention rather than desperation. Then there's discipline. Discipline in your 40s is completely different from discipline in your 20s. In your 20s, discipline feels forced. You're constantly fighting impulses. In your 40s, discipline is natural. You've seen the consequences of bad habits. You've lived through financial stress, mistakes, and setbacks. That experience creates restraint. You don't chase every shiny opportunity anymore. You evaluate risk more clearly. You understand patience. And patience is one of the most underrated wealth-building skills. Another major advantage of your 40s is network. In your 20s, your network is mostly potential. In your 40s, your network is proven. You know people who have built businesses, climbed corporate ladders, invested successfully, and failed enough times to be wise. Opportunities flow differently when people trust your experience. Wealth is rarely built alone. It's built through partnerships, referrals, mentorship, and access. Your 40s give you access that your 20s simply can't. Let's also talk about mindset. In your 20s, money feels emotional. You compare yourself constantly. You feel behind. You feel pressure to make it. This leads to impulsive decisions, high-risk investments, lifestyle inflation, and trying to look successful instead of becoming successful. In your 40s, money becomes strategic. You care less about appearances and more about outcomes. You focus on cash flow, assets, risk management, and long-term security. You understand that boring strategies executed consistently often outperform flashy moves. This mindset shift alone can multiply wealth. Another reason your 40s are powerful is capital. By this stage, you usually have more capital to deploy. Even modest savings accumulated over years can now be invested more aggressively, but intelligently. Real estate, businesses, diversified investments, and scalable income streams become accessible. And here's something people overlook. Compounding works best when income is high. Compounding a large amount over 10 to 20 years can outperform compounding a tiny amount over 40 years. Time matters, but income and consistency matter just as much. Your 40s also bring emotional resilience. You don't panic as easily. Market downturns don't shake you the same way. You've lived through cycles. You understand that setbacks are temporary. This emotional stability prevents you from making costly financial mistakes during stressful times. Wealth isn't just about math, it's about behavior, and behavior improves with age. Now, let's address a common fear. Many people in their late 30s or early 40s think it's too late. This belief is not only false, it's dangerous. It stops people from taking action at the exact moment they are most capable of building wealth. Your 40s are not the beginning of decline. They are the beginning of leverage. You have experience, income, clarity, discipline, and perspective, all working together. That combination is rare in your 20s. The goal of your 20s is not to be rich. The goal is to learn, experiment, and survive without permanent damage. The goal of your 40s is to consolidate, focus, and build deliberately. If you're in your 20s watching this, don't panic. You're not late, you're early. Focus on skills, habits, and avoiding catastrophic mistakes. Wealth will come later. If you're in your 30s, you're transitioning. This is the setup phase. Get intentional, clean up finances, increase income, prepare for acceleration. And if you're in your 40s, this is your moment. Not because you're lucky, not because it's easy, but because you're finally equipped. Your 40s beat your 20s for building wealth, not because time disappeared, but because wisdom showed up. And wisdom, when combined with action, is unstoppable. There is another reason your 40s quietly outperform your 20s when it comes to building wealth, and it's one most people underestimate. Alignment. In your younger years, your life is fragmented. Your goals, values, lifestyle, and finances are often pulling in different directions. You want freedom, but you also want comfort. You want risk, but you also want security. This internal conflict creates financial inconsistency. You might earn well for a short time, then burn out. You might save aggressively, then overspend. Nothing stays aligned for long. In your 40s, alignment becomes natural. Your financial goals finally match your life goals. You're not trying to impress anyone. You're not chasing validation. You're building a life that actually fits you. And when your money has a clear purpose, it grows faster. Another overlooked advantage of your 40s is decision quality. In your 20s, decisions are often made with incomplete information and excessive optimism. You underestimate risk and overestimate speed. You believe success should happen quickly. When it doesn't, frustration sets in. In your 40s, you understand timelines. You know meaningful things take years, not months. This patience allows you to stick with strategies long enough for them to work. You don't quit too early. You don't pivot impulsively. You let momentum compound. This is especially important in investing and business. Most wealth is created by staying in the game longer than others. Your 40s give you the maturity to do exactly that. There's also something powerful that happens psychologically around this age: urgency without panic. In your 20s, urgency feels fake. You know you have time, so procrastination feels harmless. In your 40s, urgency becomes real, but it's calm. You understand time is valuable, so you focus. You cut distractions. You stop wasting energy on things that don't matter. Focus is a wealth multiplier. Instead of trying 10 things half-heartedly, you commit deeply to 1 or 2 high-impact paths. This concentration creates outsized results. Let's talk about risk, because many people assume younger equals braver and older equals safer. That's not entirely true. In your 20s, you often take reckless risks because you don't fully understand consequences. In your 40s, you take calculated risks, and calculated risks are far more profitable over time. You assess downside, you prepare buffers, you diversify intelligently, you don't gamble, you allocate. This approach protects your downside while still allowing upside, which is exactly how sustainable wealth is built. Another major factor is credibility. In your 40s, people listen to you differently. Your age signals experience, even before you speak. This credibility opens doors. Clients trust you more, investors take you seriously, partners feel safer working with you. Trust reduces friction, and reduced friction increases income. You don't have to hustle as loudly anymore. Opportunities come to you because of who you are and what you've done. Let's also address health, because wealth and health are deeply connected. In your 20s, you treat your body like it's indestructible. In your 40s, you understand it's an asset. You start protecting your energy, your sleep, and your mental clarity. This improves decision-making and productivity. Wealth is built with sustained effort over time. Burnout destroys wealth faster than bad investments. Your 40s teach you sustainability. There's also a shift from consumption to ownership. In your 20s, spending feels like reward. In your 40s, ownership feels like freedom. You care less about buying things and more about owning assets. This single shift from consumer to owner is one of the biggest reasons wealth accelerates later in life. You begin to ask better questions. How does this generate cash flow? How does this protect me long-term? How does this reduce my dependence on active income? These questions lead to smarter choices. And here's a truth that rarely gets said out loud. Many people fail financially in their 20s and 30s, not because they lack ability, but because they lack patience. Those who succeed in their 40s are often the same people who simply didn't quit. They kept learning. They kept improving. They kept showing up. Time rewards persistence. Your 40s are when persistence finally pays dividends. Now let's reframe success. Success is not about becoming rich as early as possible. It's about becoming financially secure, mentally calm, and free to choose how you spend your time. For most people, that version of success is far more achievable and far more sustainable when built in their 40s. This is why late bloomers often outperform early stars. They build slower but stronger. They make fewer flashy moves but better ones. They don't need applause, they need results. If you're watching this and you're in your 40s or approaching them, understand this clearly. You are not behind, you are positioned. Every mistake you made taught you something. Every delay sharpened your judgment. Every setback strengthened your resilience. Nothing was wasted, and if you're younger, this isn't a reason to wait, it's a reason to relax. Stop rushing success. Build the foundation. Your future self will thank you. Wealth is not a race against others. It's a long-term relationship with discipline, clarity, and consistency. Your 20s give you lessons. Your 30s give you direction. Your 40s give you leverage, and leverage changes everything. So instead of fearing age, use it. Instead of regretting the past, apply it. Instead of chasing speed, build strength. Because when wisdom finally meets opportunity, wealth stops being a dream and starts becoming inevitable. That's why, for most people, their 40s don't just compete with their 20s for building wealth, they quietly win.